location.
True.
We're going to get into all the different reasons why, but this is really unique. I love vinyl. Clearly, I hope you love vinyl. We're here with Chelsea Mitchel, who's the owner, and then also a member of the Dirty Dollhouse, and we're going to get into that first. But I want to talk about this because it's like a magnificent mess, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. Like, I could spend a week in here just going through stuff.
A week would not be enough.
How did you wind up here? Like, how did this happen?
Right out of high school, this was like my first paycheck job, my first on the books, have to report to the government job. And I just never left. There's something that is so nostalgic about this place, and I am like a hopeless, nostalgic, romantic person, and being surrounded by old things that used to belong to people, things passed down. It just gives me comfort, and also the fact that I get to listen to whatever music I want all day long. That has always been a big draw for me.
What was spinning when we came in?
The Beatles?
Just playing Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was like, the classic entry music was great.
Yeah, I thought, let's go with whimsy. I do not particularly like slinging my own records. Although there is a copy in this store. It's funny to watch.
Find it.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch people pick it up and put it down and pick it up and look at me and
looks familiar.
Yeah, after a couple minutes of that, they're like, "Is this you?" Like, I don't know. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
You'll have to decide.
Yeah. Maybe you should buy it and find out.
Yeah, there you go. But so, unfortunately, we are going to ask you some questions about
right.
That's why we're here.
Listen, we all did a shot before this. We're nice and loose. We're good.
So typically what I like to do is just kind of go back to the beginning and just kind of start it out. And from what I understand, primarily in whether it was middle school or high school, it was poetry that you were writing, but then you were taught, like, people recognize you had also a very good singing voice, so you were learning how to sing and then set that to music. Is that kind of how it started?
Yeah, I am very much an English major. I am very much that person who loved writing and reading and creating things, whether they were poems or just little scenes. Sometimes I would write like little mini plays, and I think I just never had the confidence of standing in front of people and singing until there was a woman at my church who was actually a lifelong opera singer, like a world touring opera singer with her husband, and she heard me inquire one day, and she was just like, "I will give you free lessons."
Nice.
So that really kind of changed my life, because I was too shy to be like, "Oh, I'm a star. I belong up there singing solos." I didn't think of that at the time. And then just one person believed in me, and that's all it took.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a lot of times what we're hearing is that story around the one person who made you believe in yourself, and it changes the whole world. Now, is the song Nobody's Daughter where things start to kick up a notch, or is there some other moment that...
No, that was it.
Yeah.
That was, Nobody's Daughter was the song I wrote before Dirty Dollhouse had actually formed. I wrote that song and wrote these harmonies, and
people loved it.
I guess they did.
It's okay to say
they didn't hate it.
I guess, yeah.
No.
I need my manager here to field those questions. Yes, they did.
No, they loved
it. Was a great success.
We're going to edit some of that in there. Yeah. Well, right, because I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone just for notes, but like it was showcased in the American Songwriter magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole thing?
Yeah,
no big deal.
I guess it was successful. And then you also, it was at the same time you were winning the Tri-State Indie Vocalist of the Year.
Yeah.
Oh, that award.
It's okay. But, so then Vinyl Child comes out in 2017. Speaking to your, and I'll cover you can take a sip because I have a little bit of an intro. You were talking before about how you want to see different things from different types of songs from the same artist. And that album has a lot of, various different sounding songs,
Yes, that
somewhat right after each other. But I heard you say like you were happy with that, like you were glad with the way that came out.
I was happy that we got to explore so much on that album. And would it have been maybe more palatable to record buyers if it was a specific genre? Maybe it would have. I don't know. I don't write music so people buy it. I guess that's my
I love that though. Like I think that's terrific.
Yeah, no, and that's the best way to do it, I would assume, because there's so many of these
That's
bands.
true art.
So
Like,
the shit
But
that
it
I
does.
write is a bit, it can be maudlin, I would say. Touch maudlin. And sometimes I'll play just the most sad sack stuff you've ever heard and immediately follow it up with some quip on stage or like, I'll just belittle myself or I'll joke about the stupid hat I'm wearing. I'm like, yeah, it's too heavy in here right now. I don't want y'all sitting with this feeling.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, you talked earlier about being a hopeless romantic, and that's some of the lyrics that you write is a lot of that stuff. And I think it's so interesting. To be honest, like it's such an interesting take on it. It's not your classic, like heartbreak song. Like the one that Honeyed Her Onto Us, I think is such a very unique take on a breakup song.
Yeah.
It's such a different style, and it's so beautiful, and one of the best songs I've ever heard, to be honest with you.
Oh, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Mhm.
That means a lot.
Yeah, no, and it's also the powerful vocals, and I'm much more a person who's into just the music, but when the vocals are just adding to it, it's just so great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get a lot of help with Eric, my drummer, Eric Laurie. He has a beautiful voice, and it just sits with mine so nicely. And I don't think I've ever had that experience with a male singer before. I love singing with my husband. We have two very different voices, which is also wonderful and nice. It doesn't quite have that blend to it where sometimes I feel like we're Johnny and June. Like he has this deep, deep voice that is like amazing and has that gravel to it. And I'm like a soprano. It's like doing really high notes. So sometimes I struggle to meet him halfway with the keys that we sing in.
Yeah.
But with Eric, it just sits. It's just there, and we melt together vocally. And I'm so lucky that he wants to play music.
And even speaking about the heft of that banjo, this is something else I read about where, and I think it should be a pretty cool story. You guys performed for Barack Obama and the Prime Minister of Ireland at the Friends of Ireland in Washington, D.C. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What a very
Barack.
cool thing there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you obviously share whatever story about that, but I guess I read that somewhere along the way, Martin asked President Obama to hold his banjo, and he said no because it was too heavy.
He said we asked him a number of times. Well, I'll tell you what, we asked if we could ask him. So we had a couple of handlers that were looking after us, right? And they do the whole thing of like, you're going to follow these people and don't move left or right.
Right. You're
going to go straight onto the podium. Don't look at anybody. Don't make and literally don't make any sharp movements.
Right.
And it was amazing. But we asked, can we ask President Obama to hold the banjo? And they said, hold on a second. And they're like, "Brr, brr, brr." Under no circumstances are you to ask the president to hold the banjo, right? And
like, who does that call go to? They're asking if he can hold the banjo. Like, what? No, of course not.
100% Irish. Martin is like, I'm going to ask him anyway. And so we get him up on stage with Joe Biden and the Irish, the Taoiseach of Ireland, the Irish Prime Minister, and there's a bunch of others. And Martin is straight away, Mr. President, would you like to hold the banjo? And he said, no, I don't. My advisors said that it would be a bad idea for me to hold the banjo. And Martin goes, are you sure you wouldn't like to hold the banjo?
Like, come on.
Oh, that's too funny. Are you a friend of Ireland or aren't you? That's what the whole day was about.
We just have that audacity. Can you imagine? I'd be next to him like, I'm just here, like, to ask him to hold it. It's pretty wild.
That's awesome. That is super awesome. And I imagine that performance was was probably pretty awesome for you guys. I mean, you're there with the heads of both these countries that you're so connected to. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. A great honor, actually, to do it. Yeah.
Is there any recordings of that, or was that just for them?
That was just for them. Yeah.
That's even cooler, actually. Like,
yeah, my wife flew over from Ireland when she found out that we were going to meet President Obama. She flew over for one night, so she has a little video on her iPhone.
That's true.
But we weren't allowed release. We asked. They're like, no, under no circumstances.
You can't hold a banjo, and you're not allowed to record it. But it happened.
But the story gets bigger with every telling, of course.
Yeah, because now it's whatever you guys say it is. That's what it is.
Martin wrestled him to the ground and made him hold the banjo. Yeah.
You're holding this banjo.
So this was a 3-year anniversary. And so it included money to record an album and a bunch of tours in Ireland, which were all funded. And we sold out every single show because people would come along and they're like, "We Banjo 3. This sounds like total fun. Like 3 banjos sounds crazy." We didn't know enough music at the time to play a full show, right? So we used to tell loads of jokes, like just jokes. And so the show was kind of like half telling jokes and stories and half playing music and songs. And people loved it because it was highly entertaining. And so just to explain, why there's 4 people in the band, very quickly we got to the maximum sound that we could get with 3 banjos, right? There's only so many, especially because there are 3 banjos tuned the very same way. Sure. There's only so many iterations of how you play each of the instruments. So Dave started playing guitar, Martin started to play mandolin, and so we were able to expand the kind of soundscape of what we were doing. And so we got invited to Milwaukee Irish Festival. In 2011, they asked us, would we come in 2012? We just released our first album. And I had played the festival in 2003, and I knew how big it was. I mean, we were talking monster stages. And I was terrified that 3 guys with not enough sound,
right,
that we would just go down like a damn squib. And so my brother, who's a fiddler, Fergal, he had played on our album. And at the time, he was playing in the pubs in Clifton, which is in the west coast of Ireland, making a fortune. He was playing for American tourists, like doing 14 gigs a week, tip jar, CDs, you name it. Like he was absolutely creaming it in. And we forced him to come to Milwaukee for the weekend. We kind of guilt-tripped him in. And he goes, "I don't want to be in your band. And I don't want to give you... Do you understand how much money I'm going to give up to go to Milwaukee for the weekend?"
I'm going to Milwaukee. Like Milwaukee. I mean...
Yeah. He's like, this is just going to cost me money. And we're like, we'll look after you. Don't worry.
Right.
And so we just, all we didn't want to do was embarrass ourselves. And we got there. And we just, and I don't know why. I've looked back at the videos from that time and it's, but it blew up. I think we hit a time in the Irish music market or in the scene where things had been stagnant for a couple of years. That's my guess. And then we came in doing something completely different, like banjos, a little touch of bluegrass, and an awful lot of fun, an awful lot of play acting on stage, because both Fergal and Dave are just natural entertainers, and they're standing on tables and running across, through the crowd and all this kind of thing. Yep. And it blew up. And we went from playing in the small little stage to 20 people to 3,000 people trying to get into that little tent at the end of the festival. And then suddenly we had a band, and there was 4 people in it, and it was called We Banjo 3. And for a very short amount of time, we tried to call it We Banjo 3 +1 to try and make some numerical sense out of it. And Fergal was like, "I'm not going to be a +1.
I'm the +1."
It's like,
like when you get invited to a wedding and it says +1, it would always be him. Like, I guess I got to bring Fergal to this one. But when did he change his mind about wanting to be part of the band? Like, was it in the middle of that set going, "I am not giving this up," or was it a little longer after that?
It was essentially that weekend kind of was just the starting block to do a tour the following summer. And we went out the following summer and we did 7 weeks.
So actually, that's a great transition there. Sorry, go ahead, George.
No, you're good. You're good.
So there is one element of your show that is very serious. And I wanted to make sure that we spent a little bit of time there, in that you guys have a lot of awareness and information you bring to people who need it in the mental health area. And there's some songs that you guys have written specifically about that, but even portions of all of your sales goes towards organizations that help people in need. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that a little bit because I know it's an important part of what you guys talk about.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it became a movement certainly in the broader entertainment industry over the last number of years. And, our singer David was very open, very honest about it, that he had no more than so many people had struggled with anxiety and depression.
Sure.
And we had written a couple of songs about it. And what we found is that when you talk about it, people are very, very open to hearing about it. And then what we realized quite quickly is that there's often an awful lot of people at audiences that are really struggling, even, in the moment. And so they feel validated, and then they want to come up and talk and meet you and all that kind of thing, So what initially was, I don't think we fully anticipated the connection that people would have with it, and so that was very gratifying is the wrong word, but again, it's a kind of a humbling kind of thing that if you're playing music and you're singing songs and you have the job almost to entertain people, but then the opportunity arises where you can connect with them on a very, very deep level.
Certainly.
And so that has been a great experience.
I think the reception there is because it has a stigma to it. And when the stigma is removed and it's okay, that is such a relief for someone who is struggling, and it's going to be way, way more people than anyone ever realizes. I think that must be why that it becomes such a thing that they're so thankful for that moment, and that ability to feel, again, like you said, validated.
Yeah, I mean, it can be an extremely lonely place if you are suffering on any level. People can feel very, very alone with that. And if they go to a concert and then they hear, well, hey, we have also struggled. I mean, that sense of identification and connection is a huge part of healing, any healing modality when it comes to mental health. And so that was an inadvertent kind of result of what we were doing. And when we played a festival in Dublin, Ohio, a number of years ago, and this lady came to the show on a Saturday night. Her friend had been on Friday night. And then she came on Saturday night, and she came up to talk to us after the show. And her son had killed himself on Thursday, so 2 days prior. And she came up and talked to us, and she said, "I'd heard that you were singing about mental health and about depression and anxiety, and I just wanted to come and be part of that experience, And the following morning, we wrote that song "Hold On to Your Soul," which people, and it was as a direct result of the immediacy of that lady's experience, which was very real and very, very raw. So again, you never really know when you're on stage who's in front of you, what they're going through, and it's not that it becomes a huge kind of a burdensome affair where you're like, oh, we have to hold everybody. But if you make it just an honest part of what we do,
certainly
that seemed to resonate very strongly with people.